I moved into an old apartment 2 weeks ago. Cheap rent, quiet neighborhood, seemed like a good deal. But one thing bothered me. In the bedroom stood this huge, ancient wardrobe, heavy, nailed to the floor. The landlord just said, "Leave it alone. Don't try to move it." I laughed it off. That first night I barely slept. I kept hearing creaking, subtle, rhythmic, like something moving inside the wardrobe. I told myself it was just old wood settling. By the third night, I woke up at 3 a.m. Clear, deliberate knocks from inside the wardrobe. I froze. My heart was pounding. I waited. Silence. I finally approached it, hand trembling. I grabbed the handle. Knock! I jumped back. The next morning I opened it. No lock, just rusty old handles. Inside, random coats, dusty blankets. But at the very bottom, I saw a slightly raised wooden panel, like a hidden hatch. I pried it open with a screwdriver. Beneath it was a void, just darkness, no floor, no bottom, just blackness. I lowered my phone into the hole, recording a video. 10 minutes later, I pulled it back up. The footage showed darkness for a few seconds. Then, 2 pale hands crawled up from the void. They grabbed the phone, and the screen shook violently before cutting out. I don't even remember screaming. I ran to my neighbor, an old man downstairs. When I told him about the wardrobe, he went pale. "You opened it?" I nodded. He sighed, deep and tired. "One of the tenants did that years ago. He vanished. We warned him too. That wardrobe, it's older than this building." I wanted to leave, immediately, but most of my stuff was still in there. I told myself I'd stay one more night, just until sunrise. At 2:44 a.m., the wardrobe opened on its own. I woke to the sound of creaking wood. The doors were wide open. From the blackness inside, a face was watching me. White, long, no eyes, just a stretched grin, and it was smiling. I couldn't move. The air in the room felt frozen, my body paralyzed. The face started crawling out. No sound, no movement from the wardrobe, just the thing pulling itself into my world. Closer, closer. I shut my eyes, heart hammering in my chest. Then, my phone rang, loud, shrill. I snapped up in bed. The wardrobe was shut. The face, gone. Unknown number. I answered. A dry, scratching voice whispered, "You saw me. Now I'm yours." The officer looked at me like I was mad. "Sir, this unit's been vacant for over a decade. It's not even listed on our rental records. But I still have the key and the video file. It's corrupted, just static, except..." When I open a wardrobe in any room now, even in a hotel, I feel eyes watching me, and sometimes when I turn away, it creaks open.
The silent floor.
When I moved into this house, They only showed me the first and second floors. The third, the attic, was locked. The landlord just said,
It's not used. No one's been up there in years. Just don't go.
I didn't think much of it. The house was old, but cozy. During the day, bright, even welcoming, but at night, it changed. The air grew thick, heavy, like it was watching, like something above me was waiting. I'd wake up in the dark, heart pounding, feeling eyes on me from the ceiling. And on the fourth night, I heard it. Steps. Not creaks, not the house settling, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. On the third floor. Back and forth, like someone testing the space, like they were getting comfortable. I climbed the stairs. The attic door was still locked, but cold air was seeping through the crack. It smelled like wet metal. I pressed my ear to the wood. Silence. Then a voice, right on the other side.
I hear you.
I ran. I didn't sleep. Sat in the kitchen till sunrise. Every light on, every shadow watched. The next morning I called a locksmith. He cracked the attic open. I went up alone. There was no dust, no cobwebs, just clean, empty space, like someone had been living there, recently. In the center of the room, a wooden chair. Above it, a rope. Not old, not decorative, just hanging tight, ready. And on the walls, carved deep into the wood. He wakes when you sleep. Don't leave mirrors uncovered. If he speaks to you, don't answer. I nailed the door shut, left it that way. Thought it was over, but it got worse. The footsteps stopped, but the mirror started, breathing, fogged from the inside. And on the glass fingerprints, dragging slowly from the other side. I threw them all out. No more mirrors. But then I woke up one night, and a noose was around my neck. Not tight, not pulling, just resting there, waiting. Then the other door appeared, in the hallway, black, thin metal handle. I never built it, no one installed it, but there it was. I tried to open it, locked. A few nights later, the voices started, coming from behind it. Whispers, repeating my thoughts, calling my name, then laughing. Not human laughter, not from a throat. It echoed like it came from deep inside a hole. I recorded the sounds one night, listened in the morning. One phrase.
When you go quiet, I'll come out.
Now I'm afraid to speak, afraid to sleep, afraid of silence. Every moment I stand still. I hear it breathing behind the walls. I feel something lowering itself from above. Sometimes I hear floorboards creak, not beneath me, but above. If your house has a locked floor, don't open it. It's not empty. It's just waiting for you to stop believing it ever was.
We thought it would be a fun weekend. Campfire, beers, a few dumb stories. But that night, something else recorded with us. And in the morning, one of us was gone. Every summer, my friends and I would take a weekend trip to a remote cabin. Nothing fancy, just a fire pit, some beers, grilled food, and late-night stories under the stars. There were 5 of us, me, Mark, Tyler, Nate, and Eric. The cabin belonged to Tyler's dad, a rundown wooden place way out in the woods, no neighbors, no cell signal. Even the old radio could only catch one station, and even that with static. That's exactly why we loved it. No noise, no people, just peace and isolation. One summer in August, everything started out normal. We arrived in the afternoon, unloaded our gear, chopped a bit of firewood, and set up a backup tent outside, in case someone wanted to sleep under the trees. By sunset, we had a fire going, and were halfway through a six-pack. Around midnight, someone, I think it was Mark, said, "Hey, let's record the night. Like just leave a phone on with a voice recorder. Maybe we'll catch something weird. A fox howling, or like footsteps, or something." We laughed. Nobody actually believed anything would come out of it. Still, Mark put his phone on the windowsill in the cabin's main room, the one with the old wooden bed and the half-collapsed dresser. He opened the voice recorder app, set the phone face down, and said, "Let's see what ghosts we catch." We went to bed. I was in the back room with Nate. Eric took the tent. Tyler crashed on the couch in the kitchen, and Mark stayed in the front room with the phone. That night was quiet, peaceful, nothing felt off. We all fell asleep fast. Next morning we all woke up more or less at the same time. Sunlight through the windows. Eric swearing from the tent about being eaten alive by mosquitoes. Tyler making coffee while the floor creaked under his feet. But Mark, he was different. He didn't eat, didn't speak, just sat there, staring at his phone. Finally, he said, "Guys, listen to this." He scrubbed the recording forward, about halfway through the night. At first, just the sounds of breathing, wind, maybe someone turning over in bed. Then a sharp click, like something hitting the table. We all looked at each other. "What the hell was that?" Eric asked. "No idea," Mark said. "Just keep listening." Then came a voice, not ours. A whisper, barely audible, but definitely human, and we all knew we were asleep at that time. The voice was followed by heavy breathing, then words. Slow, drawn out, like they were underwater. "Not alone. It's time." Mark hit pause. He looked pale. "That wasn't any of us. I swear, I was lying right there. No one got up. No one came in. We stood in silence. It didn't feel like a prank anymore." Mark wasn't the kind of guy to joke like this, and his face said it all. I slowed the recording down. He said, "There's more." He pressed play again. Slowed version. Another voice. Lower guttural. Almost like a growl. Not quite English. Just dark, threatening tones. And then the sound of something scratching across glass. Long and sharp. No one laughed after that. We decided to leave. Not right away. We packed in silence, not even looking at each other. Mark went out to start his car. Nothing. No sound. Tried again, still dead, and it had worked perfectly the day before. Battery was fine. No logical reason. "Maybe we just stay one more night," Nate suggested. "Try again in the morning." Mark shook his head. "No, I'm not staying here. I don't care what you guys do." He grabbed his sleeping bag, flashlight, and headed to the tent. Wanted to be outside, away from the cabin. The rest of us stayed inside. We tried to sleep, but it felt like the air was heavier. Like someone was in the room with us, listening, standing behind the door. Next morning, Mark was gone. We thought maybe he went into the woods to take a piss. We called out, walked round, checked the trail, nothing. His tent was unzipped, sleeping bag neatly folded, no signs of struggle. His boots were missing, his phone lying right there, turned off. We panicked, packed everything and drove to the nearest town, several miles down the dirt road. From there we called the cops. They showed up about an hour later. Did a full search. Nothing. No prints. No tracks. No signs of where he might have gone. They took our statements and let us go. Said maybe he wandered off and got lost, but we knew better. Mark wouldn't just leave. Not alone. Not without his gear. A day later, they returned his phone to us. Only one file stood out. The same recording from that night. We played it again. And at the very end, in the final 10 seconds, just as Mark had probably zipped the tent and laid down, a whisper, barely audible, but clear. One of you stayed. Mark was never found.
I don't remember the last time I felt calm. Maybe before my brother died. His body was never found. Officially, he's missing. Unofficially, I know he was here, in this place, in this room. When my tire blew and the road led me to this motel, I thought it was a coincidence. Now I understand. It was an invitation, or a return. I'd been here before. I just didn't remember. I'd been driving for 6 hours. The asphalt shimmered under the sun and the sky hung low like a stretched canvas. The horizon pulsed with heat. The landscape was empty. No cars, no people, no signs. Only scattered scraps of rubber and potholes suggested that someone had ever passed through. The car interior was stifling. The AC had long given up and my shirt clung to my back. I turned off the radio, just static, irritating and relentless. My phone blinked its last signal bar and froze. No reception at all. The road felt endless, and I wasn't sure I'd make it to the nearest town. When the front tire blew out with a loud pop and the car veered, I gripped the wheel and steered onto the shoulder. A moment later, silence again. Only the wind rustling dust along the asphalt. I stepped out and bent over the wheel. The tire was losing air. Not a puncture, but bad enough to make driving dangerous. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and scanned the horizon. Just ahead, flat emptiness. But to the right, among sparse bushes, I saw a crooked sign. The paint was peeling, the letters faded, but I could still read, Stonefield Motel, 1 mile. No chain name, no logo, just a direction. I hesitated. Maybe it was just some old abandoned place. But I was tired, alone. I needed somewhere to rest. I got back in the car and started the engine. The tire groaned but held. I turned right onto a narrow, cracked road overgrown with grass. The motel appeared suddenly. A long, one-story building almost sunken into the earth. Wooden, paint chipped and flaking with a blinking neon sign, Stidas Ni Il. The rest of the letters were dead. Out front, a small parking lot, 5 or 6 spots, empty. I killed the engine and got out. The air was unnaturally still. No buzzing insects, no birds, just a faint hum of distant power lines. I walked to the entrance. Behind the glass door, a dim light glowed. I pushed. It wasn't locked. Inside smelled of old wood, cigarettes, and something sour. The front desk was dusty. Behind it, another room hidden behind beige curtains. I hit the bell. A harsh metallic sound rang out. A few seconds later, the curtains parted and a man appeared. About 60, thin, pale, greasy hair combed back, his face expressionless. He didn't speak, just stared at me. I swallowed. "One night," I said, Tire blew, I won't make it to town. He nodded, reached for a ring of keys, picked one. Metal tag scratched with the number 3. Held it out. Silent. You got internet? I asked, just to fill the silence. He slowly shook his head. No signal out here. I wanted to ask something else, but he was already gone, back behind the curtain. I stepped into the hallway. Identical doors lined the walls, wooden with small brass numbers. Mine was room 3. I inserted the key, turned, click, I stepped inside. The room was dark. I found the switch. Light flickered, then came on. A ceiling lamp buzzed, casting a dull yellow glow. The furnishings were minimal. A bed with a wooden headboard covered in a stiff blanket, a small wardrobe, a nightstand, an old TV with manual knobs. The floor, bubbled linoleum. In the corner, a chair with a burned patch on the seat. I sat on the bed. The mattress was firm. I looked around. Stains on the wall. An old newspaper under the nightstand. I picked it up. Dated August 2009. Headline: Tourist disappears. No trace found. A strange sense of detachment crept in. Nothing was wrong, but everything felt off. Shifted just slightly. And then I heard the first sound. A creak from the wall next to me. Then soft footsteps. Carpeted. I pressed my ear to the wall. Silence. Or was that breathing? I lay down, tried to sleep, couldn't. I kept feeling like someone was in the hallway. I even got up, opened the door. Empty. I lay back again, closed my eyes. Time stretched. When I opened them again, the light was off. I didn't remember turning it off. Darkness filled the room, thick, almost physical. I reached for the switch, nothing, still dark. And then I heard it. A rustle from the corner, from the chair. I sat up fast, dark. But something was there. A shadow darker than the dark. As if something was sitting there. Who's there? I whispered. No answer. But the chair creaked. Gently, I reached for my phone, dead, no charge, no signal. I turned to the door, got up, took a step. The floor creaked. Another step. I reached the door handle. It didn't move. Locked from inside, I hadn't locked it. Another step behind me, soft tapping like claws on wood. I stepped back, tripped, fell. Under the bed, a rasping sound like choking or laughing. I jumped up, rushed to the window. It was jammed. I hit the glass. It rattled but didn't break. The air grew thick, heavy. The breathing, not mine, was close now. Left, right. From inside the walls. I lunged at the door again. Click. The lock snapped open on its own. I flew into the hallway, dark, no lights, just a faint flicker from the front desk. I ran, but no one was there. Curtains closed, front desk empty, but sitting right on top, the key to room 3. I was holding mine in my hand, but it was there again. I grabbed the key, cold, slightly damp. I looked at my palm, still holding the one I was given. 2 identical keys, both marked 3. My fingers tightened. The metal dug into my skin. What the hell? I muttered. And then I heard a voice. Quiet, close inside my head.
You came back.
I turned around, nothing. The lobby empty. Just the hum of a dying light. I backed away, but something was off. The entrance I'd come through, it was gone. Just wall now. Wallpaper peeling at the edges. I rushed back through the hallway, tried the rear exit. There was a door, but the handle spun uselessly. The frame wouldn't budge. I slammed into it with my shoulder. Nothing. Then footsteps behind me, dragging, slow. I turned. Same hallway, but the light suddenly flicked on, buzzing. For a second, I saw something peek from the corner. I didn't wait. I ran back toward my room, but the door was open, wide. The chair was no longer in the corner. It was in the center of the room, and someone had been sitting there. The cushion was indented. Under the bed, I saw a shoe, old, dirty, familiar. My brother's. I stepped inside, trembling, reached out, knees weak, bent down, and saw his face. Pale, lifeless eyes, mouth slightly open. It was him. But the skin was tight, the lips blackened, the eyes vacant. "No!" I shouted and stumbled back, hitting the wall. His eyes blinked. I covered my face, breathing hard. When I looked again, nothing. The bed was empty, no shoe. But the chair was rocking. I bolted for the door. It slammed shut. The light died. Pitch black. I gasped for air. The voice came again, this time right in my ear.
You can't leave.
The room began to compress, the walls creeping inward, the ceiling sinking. I felt the air thickening like water. Figures emerged from the dark, tall, shifting, with distorted human faces, eyes missing, mouths open, but silent. I screamed, ran through them. They were cold, wet. One brushed my arm, burning cold. I broke through into the hallway, ran. The hallway stretched on forever, door after door, all marked 3. I stopped, chest heaving. Turned, no one behind me, just silence. Then, one of the doors creaked open beside me. I knew I shouldn't go in, but I did. Inside, another room, but white, too white, no furniture, just one chair. And sitting in it, me, same shirt, same jeans. He looked right at me. His lips moved. You've been here the whole time. You just didn't want to remember. He stood, walked toward me, my thoughts tangled, reality frayed. Where am I whispered. He smiled, tapped his chest.
Inside.
The room dissolved. I woke up at dawn, in my car, on the side of the road. The tire intact. The sun rising. The highway empty. Phone working. Signal restored. I looked to the right, where the motel sign had been. Nothing, just bushes. No sign, no road. I turned on the ignition, drove in silence, not thinking, not asking, not remembering. But one thing wouldn't leave me alone. On the passenger seat lay a key, metal tag, number 3.
Have you ever woken up, but couldn't move? Your eyes are open, you see the ceiling, but your body, it's frozen. You hear everything, but you can't scream. You see everything, but can't look away. That's how it started. I had just moved into a new apartment, old building, quiet neighborhood, peeling walls, smelled like dust and old wood. Didn't bother me. I liked the silence, especially at night. Until that night, I crashed into bed around 2 a.m., out like a light, and then I woke up. My eyes opened, ceiling, light fixture, still night, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It felt like something was pressing down on my chest, not with hands, with weight. With presence. I tried to scream. Nothing. And then I heard breathing. Not mine. Heavy. Measured. Close. I wasn't alone. There was something in the corner. At first it looked like just a shadow, but it was vibrating. Like the air around it couldn't settle. It was tall, twisted. Its arms were long, way too long. in its head. It tilted downward, where a face should have been. There was nothing, a swirling void, like someone had punched a hole in the world. It didn't move, but it watched me. I don't know how I know that, but I know it saw me. Then it started moving, slowly, unnaturally, like something crawling through molasses. It didn't walk, it leaned. Its hands came down on both sides of my head, but it didn't touch me, just hovered. And that void, that thing where its face should be, was now inches from mine. I couldn't scream, my eyes were burning. I couldn't breathe, and then it whispered, not out loud, in my head. You opened the door. Now you stay. Suddenly, it was morning. Light through the window. Normal sounds, normal room. I sat up, panting, sweating. It was over, but when I looked in the mirror, my reflection was still lying down and staring at me. The next night, it came back, and the next, it didn't wait in the corner anymore. It walked the walls, hung from the ceiling, bent in ways nothing should bend. It didn't just come close. It began to connect. It touched my mind. I felt it inside me. It didn't speak. It pulsed like electricity and nausea and cold. In my skull, every time I blinked, I saw it closer. Every time I slept, I woke up inside it. One night, I looked around the room and realized something was wrong. The walls were pulsing, the ceiling moving. The clock read 4:04, but the hands were shaking. My reflection, still, too still. Everything was wrong, but just enough to make me doubt it. Am I still dreaming? Then came the worst night. It didn't whisper. It didn't move. It put its hand on my forehead. I felt something enter me, like cold tendrils, pushing into my skull. One eye twitched. My heart stopped. I was dying, and I knew this thing wasn't just part of my dream. It was trying to replace me. I went online. I searched forums. Sleep paralysis, nightmares, hallucinations. Dozens of people, hundreds. They all described different things, but one detail was the same. The third time it comes, it stays, and it always says the same thing. You're not waking up. I'm recording this now. Maybe it's the last thing I do as me. If you're listening, never sleep face up. Never turn off all the lights. And if you wake up and can't move, do not open your eyes. He's there, right above you, waiting.
There were 5 of us. Me, Ethan, Jake, Tyler, Chris, and Adam. We just wanted to get away for a few days. Camping, no phones, no noise, just trees and firewood and cheap beer. We picked a forest none of us had been to, way off the grid. Locals gave us weird looks when we asked for directions. One old man just said, "That place doesn't want company." We laughed. The first day went great. We set up tents, swam in the creek, grilled, told stories. At night, Jake joked, "This is exactly where people in horror movies die. We all laughed, except Adam. He was quiet. Later that night, as we sat by the fire, he said, "This forest, it feels like it's watching us." We thought he was just drunk. But the next morning, we found one of the tents slashed open from the side. Not torn. Cut. Clean. Like with a blade. Tyler was sleeping inside. He swore he didn't hear a thing. No prints, no animals, just silence. That night, Jake went to take a piss in the trees. He never came back. We called for him. Then we searched. For hours. Nothing. And worse, it felt like we were being followed. Not footsteps, just pressure. Like someone was behind you, just out of reach. We returned to camp shaken. That night, none of us really slept. Adam sat up by the fire holding a hatchet. I woke up sometime after 2 a.m. I heard branches snapping. Something was moving. Slow. Deliberate. When I looked out, Adam was gone. No sound, no scream, just a trail. Like something had dragged him. And in the dirt, long strands of gray, rotting hair. Chris started to panic. Tyler tried to calm him down, but Adam's knife was still warm. And near the fire, we found a patch of skin. Gray. Thin. Like stretched leather. We packed up at dawn. Tyler said nothing the entire hike. Just kept looking behind him. Then, around noon, we heard a sound. Not an animal. A scream. High-pitched. Wrong. Like a person. And something else. Chris bolted. We tried to stop him, but he ran into the trees. Seconds later, we heard crunching. Bones. And then, silence. When we found him, his neck was bent backward, jaw shattered. Around him were prints. Human. But wrong. Fingers too long, no toes, just long, sharp ends like claws. And then we saw it. In the distance, between the trees, tall, hunched, skin gray and tight over bone, arms too long, hair hanging in wet strands over its face, and its eyes, enormous, reflective, alive. It didn't move, just watched. Tyler grabbed me. "It hunts fear," he said. "It doesn't see the way we do, it feels your fear." We ran. For hours. But the trees didn't change. The forest looped. Again and again, we ended up back at our camp. Chris was gone, just me and Tyler. We built a huge fire, sat back to back, tried not to blink. Then, a voice. A whisper. But it was my voice. "Tyler, come here, I need you." He froze. I looked. He was staring into the trees, pale. Then he stood and walked into the dark. I screamed, ran after him, but he was already gone. All that was left was his flashlight and his shoes. I was alone. And then I heard it behind me. Breathing. Not fast, not heavy, just slow. Wet. Close. I didn't turn around. I still haven't.
I moved into that apartment in late September. It was an old brick building on the edge of Philadelphia. Nothing fancy, but close to work and affordable for someone like me, just starting out. 1-bedroom unit, 3rd floor, no elevator, creaky stairs that always smelled faintly of mold and paint. The apartment was small, functional, and mine. What stood out most was the single large window in the bedroom. It looked directly into another building across a narrow alley, just 10 feet away, maybe less. The window opposite mine was exactly the same size, same style, same position. At first, I didn't think much of it. Curtains on that side were always closed, or at least that's what I told myself. Occasionally, I thought I saw movement behind the fabric, maybe someone walking by, but I paid it no real attention. Until I started noticing something. It began late one night. I'd just gotten home from work. I was doing layout design at a small publishing house, often stayed late. I tossed my bag, made tea, and sat down to scroll through my phone. At some point, I glanced up, just out of habit, and there it was, a figure, dark, motionless, standing in the window directly across from mine. No lights were on in that room, just the faint yellow glow from the alleyway lamp casting enough contrast to see the silhouette, tall, thin, watching. I froze, squinted, thought maybe it was a shadow, a coat rack. But as I stared, I saw the outline of a head, shoulders. It didn't move, not an inch. I pulled my curtains shut and walked away. Next morning I brushed it off, thought maybe I'd imagined it. Sleep deprivation, long hours, whatever. These buildings are full of weird shapes in the dark. But then it happened again. And again. Every few nights I'd look up and the figure would be there, always standing in the same place, always still. I never saw it enter or leave, never caught a glimpse of light in that apartment, only the outline, only the watching. I started losing sleep. I taped the curtain down so it wouldn't move accidentally. I even set up my phone to record overnight, pointed at the window. But every time I played the footage back, nothing. Just an empty window. No figure, no movement. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. I told a co-worker. She laughed and called it your personal ghost neighbor. I laughed too, but my hands were shaking. Then one night, I woke up around 3 a.m. Not from a dream, just that strange, instinctive jolt of awareness. Something felt wrong. I sat up and without really thinking, peeked between the curtains. It was there, closer than before, pressed almost against the glass. I saw more details this time. A long neck, narrow shoulders, the hint of a face that seemed oddly smooth, almost too blank. The shape was clearer than ever, but still no light, no movement, just watching. I stumbled back. I shut the curtain. I sat on the floor for an hour, trying to convince myself it was a trick of the street lamp. The following day, I did something drastic. I went to the building across the alley, climbed up the same floor, found the apartment directly opposite mine. The door was boarded up, the frame rusted, a faded notice stuck to the wood. Condemned. Entry prohibited. 2013. That place had been abandoned for over a decade. I felt sick. Back home, I installed blackout blinds, slept with the lights on, tried to live as though it had all been some extended hallucination. It worked for a few nights. No figure, no dreams. Then one morning, I woke up and noticed something on the window. 2 handprints, pressed against the inside of the glass, wet, clear, human, facing out.
My parents left for a 2-week cruise down the Gulf, their first real vacation in years, and asked me to house sit. The place was their 2-story home out in rural Pennsylvania, about 30 minutes from the nearest town. Quiet, surrounded by trees, no neighbors within shouting distance. I'd grown up there, but hadn't been back much since moving to the city. Still, the house felt familiar enough. Solid old wood construction, creaky stairs, old carpet. I settled in quickly, slept in the downstairs guest room. The second floor hadn't been used in a while. Just a couple of dusty bedrooms and my grandmother's old sewing room, all shut tight. At first, everything was fine. I fed the dog, brought in the mail, read books in the evenings. The silence of the countryside was refreshing after years of city noise. But on the 3rd night, something changed. I woke up at around 2:45 a.m. No reason, no dream, no sound. just that cold, electric feeling in my chest, like something had tugged me awake. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, and then I heard it. A single floorboard creaked directly above me. It wasn't wind, wasn't the dog. It was distinct, measured, like someone shifting their weight on bare wood. Then silence. I stayed in bed for several minutes, heart racing, listening. I didn't go upstairs that night. The next morning, I went up cautiously. Everything looked untouched, dust undisturbed, no signs of entry. I opened each door, flicked each light. Silence. But the air smelled stale, heavy, like an attic that hadn't been opened in years. Even though it had only been a few months, I shrugged it off, told myself old houses make noise. I almost believed it. Until the fourth night. I woke up again. Same time. Same heavy feeling in my chest. But this time, I heard breathing. Not mine. Not the dog's. It was above me. Long, slow, raspy breaths. As if someone was standing still, maybe crouching, right over my bed on the second floor. The breath wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. Just persistent and wet. Each inhale dragged through mucus and phlegm. Each exhale was long and rattling. I sat up, phone clutched in hand. No signal. I didn't go upstairs. I just waited. Eventually, the sound stopped. I fell asleep with the lamp on, sitting in a chair, knife from the kitchen in my lap. From that night on, the air in the house changed. It got harder to breathe near the stairs. The smell upstairs worsened, sour, damp, like mildew mixed with rotting fabric. The dog refused to go near the second floor. She'd stand at the base of the stairs and whimper. Then, on the fifth night, I heard the staircase creak. Not above me, below me. Someone was coming down. I froze, heard each step groan under weight. Slow, deliberate, step, pause, step, pause. They reached the hallway. I was in the guest room, door cracked open. I turned off the lamp, held my breath. I could hear breathing again, louder now, labored, wet. I saw nothing, but I felt it, a presence, in the hallway, facing the room, watching, not moving. It stayed there for what felt like forever, and then it was gone. In the morning, I checked the stairs. Nothing. No prints. No damage. But in the carpet of the hallway, faint impressions, damp footprints, bare. I left that day. Packed a bag and stayed in a motel until my parents got back. I didn't tell them everything. Just that the power kept going out. That the place creeped me out. My dad didn't seem surprised. He looked toward the staircase and said quietly, "You probably shouldn't sleep downstairs next time. That's where she always liked to come down."
The Abandoned Mill, a personal account. I've always thought of myself as a rational person. Sure, I can get spooked, but I always look for a logical explanation. If a door slams in an empty building, it's a draft. If someone swears they saw a figure in the window, it's light, shadows, or their imagination. At least that's how I used to think. Until one night in 2013. That was the first time I realized not everything fits neatly into a box. This happened at an old textile mill on the edge of town. The place is huge. A multi-story brick block with soot-stained patches up the walls and deep black window openings that look like empty eye sockets. It shut down after a fire years ago. Since then, it's been sitting there, rotting away. Supposedly, it was going to be torn down, but like a lot of things in this town, it never happened. People have been telling stories about it for years. Some say you can hear footsteps inside even when no one's there. Others talk about doors welded shut from the inside, with deep scratch marks on the metal. A few claim to have seen shadows moving in the hallways. I always chalked it up to urban legends. That night, my buddy Oleg and I decided to go in and film a short video for the internet. The plan was simple: walk the first floor, maybe go up to the second, get a few shots, and leave. We picked just before sunset to make it look atmospheric. The walk there took us past the train tracks and into the industrial zone. Rows of garages, empty lots, chain-link fences, and weeds pushing up through cracked asphalt. When we got close, the sun was low, hitting the brickwork with this deep reddish light. A bent danger and unsafe structure sign hung loosely on the gate. The yard was overgrown. We circled to the left side of the building and found a gap in the fence. The air inside the yard smelled stale, like a mix of damp concrete and rust. The temperature dropped a little, which was weird because the day had been hot. We went in through a side door that was hanging off its hinges. Immediately, we were standing in the main production floor, a huge echoing space filled with long rows of old machines. Most were coated in dust and rust. Some were just stripped down frames. Bits of belt straps, broken glass, and scraps of cloth littered the floor. A few wires dangled from the ceiling like vines. I pulled out my phone, switched on the flashlight, and started filming. Oleg walked a few steps ahead. Every sound, our shoes, the crunch of glass, bounced back from the walls, making it sound like someone else was moving nearby. At the far end of the floor, we found a staircase. The steps were metal, worn down but solid. We climbed to the second floor. A long hallway stretched both ways. Most of the doors were busted open, but one stopped us cold. It was a heavy steel door, welded shut from the other side. The weld seams were old and dark, but across the rust were fresh scratches, deep parallel lines, evenly spaced, like someone had dragged something sharp across it. Below that was a smudged handprint, from the inside. I was about to get a close-up when, somewhere deeper down the hallway, a door slammed. Hard. The sound was heavy, not the kind of noise wind makes. We froze. Then, up on the third floor, we saw a light flick on. Oleg whispered that we should leave, but I wanted to know how any light in this building could even work, so we went up. The third floor stairs were narrow. The handrails were coated in a thick black soot or dust that stuck to your skin. At the top was a landing with an old table, a chipped coffee mug, and a bulky early 2000s security monitor. It was on. The screen flickered with static. It showed a hallway, our hallway. About half a second later, two figures appeared on the feed. Us, caught in the beam of my phone's flashlight. That tiny delay made my skin crawl. Oleg stepped over to the console, tried pressing buttons, but nothing changed. The feed stayed locked on us. Then the hallway light flickered and went out. The building went completely silent. Even that faint hollow hum you get in big empty places was gone. And in that silence, we both heard it. Breathing, slow, heavy, uneven, and it was coming from just behind us. I spun around with the flashlight. The beam swept across the wall, the doorframe, nothing there. But on the screen, half a second behind, the beam stopped on a figure in the doorway. It was shaped like a person, but the head was tilted sharply to one side, the neck stretched at an unnatural angle. We both stepped back. The monitor glitched, the image rolled once, then came back. Now the doorway was empty. We didn't run, but we didn't waste time either. Heading for the stairs, I slid my hand down the rail. The soot smeared across my skin, but in it were marks, finger tracks. Long, thin, dragging lines, like someone had gone down these stairs slowly, carefully, gripping tight. We reached the first floor. The air down there was damp and carried that basement-like smell, cold and stale. We stepped outside. The air outside was warm again, carrying the scent of grass and maybe wood smoke from somewhere far off. We walked around the building and headed toward the street. It was darker now, the mill's brick walls fading into the night sky. Neither of us spoke until we were a few blocks away. That night at home, I pulled the footage up on my laptop. Everything looked the same as I remembered. until I got to the part where I turned the flashlight toward the doorway. For just one frame, maybe less than a second, something was on the floor. A hand, thin, pale, with fingers too long, too straight. Then it was gone. I saved the file, put it in its own folder. I still have it. Every once in a while, I watch it again. And every time when the light lands on that empty doorway, I wait to see if the hand will stay in frame just a little longer this time. I don't know what we saw that night. I don't know who or what could have been inside that building. But I do know this. Ever since that day, I find myself avoiding looking too long into reflections. Store windows, dark TV screens, even video calls. Because sometimes, and I swear this is real, the reflection seems to lag. Just a fraction of a second. The same way that old security monitor did. And I really don't want to know why.
Water on the roof, a personal account.
I never planned to stay in that hotel longer than one night. I needed to be downtown, meeting in the morning, early flight out, and the cheaper options in that area are always close to the addresses I need. The facade was old-fashioned, with decorative cornices and a faded sign. The lobby smelled faintly of furniture polish and damp carpet. Behind the front desk, a tired-looking guy barely glanced up from his screen. The elevator moved in little jerks. Someone had scratched something into the panel with a key or a knife. On the 5th floor, it hesitated, and for just a second I felt the cab tilt, a small, strange, sideways shift. The doors slid open slowly like there wasn't enough air pressure in the shaft. The room was long and narrow like a train car. The window looked out onto a light well, a narrow shaft between walls, dim even during the day. In the bathroom, the water ran in bursts, a steady stream, then a hiss, then a thin brown ripple at the bottom of the sink. I chalked it up to old plumbing. I turned on the TV for background noise, tossed a glass in the sink, checked the deadbolt. It was stiff, like no one had touched it in months. I stayed up late. Through the wall, I could faintly hear someone's alarm clock ticking, and cold air drifted in from the hallway. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up to a click, like a pump starting up somewhere. A second of silence, then a low hum through the pipes and a thin drip from the bathroom ceiling. I got up and went in. A single drop had landed on the tile. It looked almost black in the moonlight. In my hand, it felt like regular water, but it had a metallic taste. By morning, everything seemed more normal. The lobby, the coffee machine, people with rolling luggage. But there was a nervous edge to the conversations. A couple arguing with the desk clerk. No pressure, water smells. Why is it coming out brown? The guy at the desk just smiled politely. We're flushing the system. Some people looked annoyed, others just grossed out, but everyone had places to be. I asked if I could see the view from the fitness room upstairs. Closed for maintenance, sir, he said without looking up. What about roof access? Closed. The answer was so quick it felt rehearsed. That afternoon, I cut through a side street and saw the hotel from the back. There was a fire escape, the top flights blocked off with a metal grate and a padlock, but the lower section was open, one railing bent out of place. I lingered for a moment, listening. Street noise outside, nothing from within. Back in my room, the shower was sputtering again. While I waited for the water to warm, I noticed a gray ring around the faucet, like sediment. It rinsed off, but left a faint roughness on my fingers. I didn't drink it. I used bottled water to wash my face. That evening, I caught the elevator on the 2nd floor. When the doors opened, there was a folded maintenance ladder lying in the corner, as if someone had left it in a rush. I held the door with my sleeve, thinking I'd pull it out. But on the back wall, I noticed 5 parallel marks in the dust, straight and evenly spaced like someone had dragged a hand down the wall. Small detail, but unsettling. I let go of the sleeve. The doors shut, then reopened like the elevator had changed its mind. That night I woke to the sound of water, like someone had dumped a bucket into a hollow tank. The vibration echoed through the walls. In the bathroom, the tap was running clean and steady now. Above me, something heavy was being moved across a metal surface with pauses in between. After a few minutes, silence. In the morning, the hallway smelled of chlorine. The door to a maintenance room was ajar. Inside was a narrow metal staircase leading up. Warm, humid air drifted down. A crooked, authorized personnel only sign hung to one side, with a fresh scratch along the edge like from a key. Through the gap at the top, a pale rectangle of daylight. I told myself I'd take 5 minutes before checking out. Back in the room, I grabbed my phone, slipped on my jacket, and went back to the maintenance door. The steps rang underfoot. The air thickened and grew warmer. At the top was a metal door with an inside latch. A thin line of daylight slipped in through the side. The latch turned easily, like it had been oiled recently. Outside, it was hotter than I expected. A flat roof, a few puddles, a low parapet wall, and scattered ventilation housings. On the far side were 4 large metal cylinders glistening with condensation, raised up on a steel frame. I knew right away they were water tanks, the kind used for autonomous supply. As I got closer, I felt the warm, damp air coming off them, like a pond in the afternoon. One hatch was locked. 2 others had heavy clamps in place. The third wasn't quite closed. The edge tilted up slightly, as if it had been lowered awkwardly and not secured. On the metal surface were fine parallel streaks with small notches along them, like someone had been gripping and sliding inch by inch. I didn't touch it. I looked around. No cameras, just old antenna brackets. A few feet away was a small locked shed, and next to it on the roof lay a faded towel, like it had been left to dry and forgotten. From the street, it would be nearly impossible to reach this roof without going through the building. Back downstairs, the lobby was noisy. A couple of tourists were arguing loudly. Someone was asking for a discount. As I passed, I caught a fragment. "They're checking the water because of complaints." The clerk nodded, repeating, "Routine flushing." I checked out that afternoon. When I asked for the receipt, the clerk looked up and paused for half a second, like he recognized me, though we'd never really spoken. "Have a good day," he said, too formal. I nodded, stepped outside, and breathed in the hot, asphalt-heavy air. A few days later, back home, I saw a short article online. The hotel had been conducting maintenance on its water system after guest complaints about taste and pressure. The write-up was vague. No confirmations, no denials of the rumors, just "work is underway." I scrolled past it, then went back and read it again. The words didn't change, but the feeling that something was being left out stayed with me. I pulled up the short clips I'd filmed on the roof. One showed me walking toward the tanks. The other was a close-up of the ribbed hatch. In the sun's glare, you could see the streaks along the edge, polished smooth like from repeated contact. Zooming in, there were tiny darker marks like the kind you'd see if fingers had been digging in. I showed the clip to a friend who works in building maintenance. He said, "Usually there aren't hand marks on the lids. You open them with the lever from the outside. If someone was sliding off, it means they were holding it from the inside." He paused, then added, "Or maybe someone below the platform was tugging while it was being closed." We both knew the second explanation didn't really make sense. I've never gone back to that hotel. When I drive past, I try to guess where the maintenance stairwell is that leads to the roof. On warm days, you can sometimes see people smoking on the neighboring rooftops, waving to each other across the street. I've never seen anyone on this one. Sometimes when I turn on the tap at night and the water takes longer than usual to come through, I remember that deep thud in the pipes, like something large dropped into a hollow tank. And when I linger in an elevator for just a second too long, I remember those parallel streaks on the hatch. I'm not sure I want to know why they were there, and what exactly they were checking that day. I grew up in a village so small it didn't even exist on most maps. Fields, forests, a few scattered houses, and silence. Heavy, endless silence. Nobody came. Nobody left. If you were born here, you either died here or simply disappeared. There was a house on the edge of town. It stood apart. Rotten wood, sunken roof, crooked windows. No one went near it. Kids were scared to even look at it. Adults? They just got quiet any time someone said the name. Tharn Kelmer. He lived alone. Rough. Mean. Didn't talk much. Didn't like anyone. They said he once had a wife. She drowned in the river. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe not. After that, he changed. Darkened. He worked at the sawmill, got drunk constantly, picked fights, yelled at the sky. He had one daughter, quiet, thin. No one remembered her name. She just stopped being seen. Rumors said he sent her away, but we all knew that was a lie. Sometimes when the wind blew from his side of town, you'd hear something. A groan, faint but long, like someone buried underground, crying for help. Nobody checked, nobody dared. Because Tharn Kelmer wasn't just cruel, he wasn't human anymore. Under that house was a basement, low ceiling, stone walls, no windows, no light. That's where he locked her, no words, no warning. Every day he opened the heavy iron door and tossed something down, rotten scraps, dead rats, sometimes a dead cat, raw meat, rotten meat, covered in flies. At first she screamed, begged, pounded on the walls, then silence. A long, cold silence. And Tharn smiled. 1 year passed, then 2, then 3. She lived down there, in the dark, alone, hearing only his footsteps above, his drunk laughter, his growling. Something inside her began to break, then something else started to grow. She stopped fearing him, stopped fearing the dark. She started to change. Her body twisted slowly. The food, if you could call it that, rotted her from the inside. Her hair fell out. Her skin turned pale gray. Her teeth sharpened. Her nails hardened. Her eyes adapted to the dark. Her spine curved. Her arms lengthened. Her joints cracked when she moved. She became tall, bent, thin, predatory. She was no longer a child, no longer a girl, not even human. And then, one day, she heard the basement door open again. It was raining. Thunder shook the walls. The power had gone out. Tharn opened the door carrying his usual dented metal bucket. Same rotten meat, same smell. He stepped down, lowered the bucket, and didn't even look up. That was his last mistake. She moved, fast, silent, from the dark corner. He had no time to react. Her teeth sank into his neck, deep, ripping flesh. He fell, choking, his eyes still wide in shock. She bit again, and again. Blood soaked the stone floor. He struggled, then twitched, then stopped. She kept going, until she felt nothing. Only then did she stand, tall, hunched, breathing heavy. She climbed the stairs, slow, deliberate. The door creaked open. She stepped into the house. The air hit her like a blade. The light stung her eyes. She hissed. Then she ran, fast, on all fours, out into the woods. No one saw her. No one even knew. Not yet. But by morning, things would start to die. At first, it was just animals. Dogs would vanish, cats torn apart, goats drained of blood. Then, the people, elderly, loners, folks no one checked on until it was too late. What they left behind didn't look human or natural. Flesh shredded, bones snapped, eyes gone, tongues bitten off. Someone claimed to see something. A figure, tall, thin, crawling like an animal, arms too long, teeth too sharp, eyes black and empty. Some said it could leap onto rooftops, move through windows, wait for hours, completely still. People stopped going out at night, locked every door, boarded up the windows, slept with guns, knives, axes. But she didn't care. She slipped through cracks, jumped over fences, watched from above. She was hunting. And then, finally, the cops arrived. They brought tech, drones, dogs, thermal gear. They searched for 3 days. What did they find? Nothing, just twisted tree branches and a cow with its spine torn out like string. It happened just before sunrise. 2 patrolmen out on ATVs. Then, a blur. To the left, by the woods. They saw her. Something fast. Moving on all fours. Then, a leap over 10 feet high. Gone. They chased. Full throttle. Shouting. Shooting. She dodged every bullet. Turned in midair. Disappeared behind trees. One of the officers swore. He saw her turn her head completely backward and smile. Then she was gone. They lost her near a rocky ravine. No blood, no footprints, no heat signature. She just vanished, and no one chased her again.